Hey, welcome back. Thanks for checking in. Here we are back at Shit Show Central here. Hopefully, you just finished watching part one and part two of my Big Rig Roundup trip down to Harlan, Kentucky with Discover 4x4 Adventures. If not, go back, check it out, see what I put this thing through, and then it'll give you a better idea on what today's video is about because we got some stuff to address and some stuff to fix for sure. So, anyway, also just want to mention if you're a subscriber, make sure you got that notification clicked. I don't post consistent videos, every Friday or whatever. I've said in the past. So videos just pop up whenever I get them done. So don't want you to miss it. Click the notification, give these a like, help a brother out. All right. So anyway, let's get into and let me show you what I'm doing today and what I got to fix. All right, so the Truggy performed awesome on that trip. I really couldn't be happier, but I did have a few problems. Did have a parts failure that I got to address today. Um, gonna be making some adjustments to some things and just making it a little bit better for the next one. Probably the biggest problem I had was my James Duff torque tamer anti-rat bar that went on the rear axle. That I had to modify it to fit the chassis of the truck. And in doing so, probably the way I did it, I could have done it better. This is totally my fault. I'm accepting all responsibility for this failure. But essentially, what happened was she failed. She broke right here, which is basically right behind where I had it. This is a piece that I had used to lengthen it. I put a slug inside the tube, inserted it into this one, welded it all up. Well, this tubing that I use is much better. This is much thicker tubing than what the Duff torque tamer was made out of. So of course, right behind where I had welded all of this together, the original tubing on the torque tamer failed and basically just ripped it right in half. So what we're going to do is we're going to improve on that. So I have me a stick of 120 wall DOM 1.5" tubing here, and I'm going to build a new one of these of my own design. It'll be much stronger and more suited for what I'm doing with this truck. So picked up some parts. I got some tubing inserts and some new Heim joints from Barnes 4-wheel drive. Gonna go ahead and just rebuild this and make it better. So that's gonna be the first thing I'm gonna get into. All right. Second biggest problem I had on the trip was heat. The truck ran very hot transmission and engine temps. These were conditions that I've never wheeled in before. Just to go from the campground to the trailhead, we must have drove uphill up a mountain for it felt like an hour in 4 low, just crawling along up till we get to the beginning of the trail system. By the time I got there, motors at 240 degrees, trans is at 250 degrees. I had to shut her down, basically let the fans. Luckily, I have a cooling fan on the auxiliary trans cooler, obviously electric fan on the motor, and I basically had to let the fans just run, cool off the fluid that was in the radiators at that time. Fire it up, let it idle for a couple minutes to circulate the fluids, shut it down, rinse and repeat. It took probably 15 minutes to get all my temperatures back down to the normal range. Then I could continue on. And there was a few times where the engine temps did get up to 220, 230, and just a short shutdown would cool it off. What I am attributing that to is before this trip, in one of the other videos, I redid the exhaust on the truck. This truck had a Y pipe on it that was always wrapped in header wrap, nice and tight. And it did a really good job of, I did it primarily to keep the floor pan of the truck cool, and it did do that. But the downside of it is it caused the Y pipe to basically rot out underneath all of the header wrap from holding the moisture. So I had a new Y pipe built. We made it tighter and closer to the engine so I had more clearance at my front axle because I had a little bit of interference there. In doing so, it's a lot tighter to the motor, a lot tighter, closer to the trans pan. So I knew that was going to be a problem with radiant heat, so I had the Y pipe ceramic coated. Unfortunately, I don't think the ceramic coating is good enough to do what I hoped. And what I really think was happening was I think the radiant heat coming off that Y pipe was being so close to the rear sump of my oil pan and the front of the bell housing where the torque converter is. I think the exhaust was basically heating up the oil in the motor and the transmission both. And where the Y pipe goes around the side of the trans is also now very close to my trans pan. So I think it was a radiant heat issue that was just heating up everything, and the cooling system just couldn't shed the heat. Once that oil was, 240, 250 degrees, who knows what it was. I don't have an oil temp sensor, but the cooling system couldn't shed that heat. Same goes for the transmission side of it. Well, once that tranny fluid got super hot like that, it was just hard for my coolers to bring the temps back down. So, solution to that, what I'm going to try is I have a roll of DEI. This is exhaust sleeving. It's all sewn together. It's all one piece. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop the Y pipe off. I'm going to slide this over the collectors, and I'm going to cover loosely as much of the Y pipe as I can in this product, with the thoughts that it will help isolate the heat away from the engine and the transmission, but it's not wrapped so tightly to the pipes. And now that they're ceramic coated, it should help too, that it's not going to rot out all my exhaust tubing. I think this will be better. It's a 3-inch diameter. My Y pipe is all 2.5-inch, so it should fit a little bit loosely on there. So hopefully it'll do what I'm thinking it will do, and it'll alleviate that problem. Also, I did note my passenger for the weekend and also myself when we swapped seats. I did notice passenger floor pan was getting super hot, which never did that before. So this will hopefully take care of that problem. Problem number 2 is I have a Dorelli auxiliary trans cooler that has its own little built-in fan on it. I did some looking. That fan pulls a whole 650 CFM. So I acquired this brand new Spall electric fan that by itself pulls 1200 CFM. So twice the airflow across that trans cooler. So I'm going to swap out the fans on the trans cooler, and hopefully this will help me at least keep the temps in control. All right. Problem number 3 I had was I have a rear view mirror camera setup deal. Obviously, looking out my back window, all I see is toolboxes and a spare tire. So I have an aftermarket rear view mirror that's actually a backup camera. I have it wired so it's on all the time. And that's mounted all the way to the back of my bed. So when I'm looking in my rear view mirror, I can actually see beyond the bed of my truck. Works awesome. I didn't realize how awesome it was until I ripped the wire off of it on this trip and I lost use of that. So I picked up a replacement backup cam. It was this wire here is what failed on me. So it got pinched between the shock and the chassis. It broke the connection. So I'm going to replace this, get my backup camera working, and I'll be happy again. And problem number 4 I had. My track bar kept coming loose at the axle bracket end of it. Numerous times throughout the weekend, we had to stop and we had to tighten it up. I don't know how this problem just showed itself during this trip and not on any of the other previous trips I've had, which is kind of weird because it literally just looks like the nut and bolt combo that I use to hold the track bar to the bracket. Either the bolt is just a hair too short because it has a nylon lock nut on the back side. It doesn't look like I'm getting fully into the nylon part of the nut. So it's easy for itself to work that nut loose, getting, you know, wrenched back and forth constantly all day. So I either need to get a longer bolt by like a half of an inch to get some good engagement into that nylon part of the nut, or I just need to get a shallower lock nut, which I probably won't do that. I'll just get the longer bolt. So yeah, it would make some really weird steering feeling, because you would turn the wheel, and before the wheels would actually change, it would basically be the chassis shifting over the axle before the wheels would actually turn. So I had like major dead spot in the center of my steering. So definitely have to address that. So I'll go ahead and get that taken care of. I suspect now, because of that, I'm probably going to find the mounting hole in the bracket has probably been wallered out now. It's probably oval. So I may end up having to drill that to an oversize and insert a weld washer to repair that hole. Not a big deal. So I will, when we get to that part, I'll show you what's up with that. So anyway, I'm going to suit up. I'm going to get ready to get dirty. I think the first thing I'm going to tackle is I'm going to start piecing together this anti-rat bar, get that on the truck, and check that off the list first. So let's do that. Okay, so like I said, I got a piece of 1.5 DOM. So what I'm going to do is I took the broken bar, laid it all out. I got a measurement from center to center of where it should be anyway. And I came up with a length that I'm going to go ahead and cut this one off here. And then I will go ahead and put in the tube inserts, weld those in, put in my heim joints, and then I will install this one back on the shackle. That'll go back on the truck, the cross member that's underneath there. And then I will fabricate this bottom one. But what I'm going to do is essentially, I'm going to extend this one all the way out to where the heim joint is going to be at the shackle. So originally from Duff, this had a bushing literally right here. So this is all the longer it was. And it's probably plenty strong. I don't suspect that it would fail right here. If this is all the longer that it was originally, it's probably fine. But with what I did with it, I probably should have. I probably shouldn't even have bought this. Honestly, I should have just built my own from scratch right from the get go. But thought I was saving myself some time and some effort by just buying what they had and modifying it to fit my needs. So anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and get this cut down and get these inserts in, and we'll go ahead and we'll get this mocked up first. Okay. So first thing I did, I got my tubing cut to length. I went ahead and beveled both ends. So then I can take my tubing inserts, get a good, nice thick weld around those. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to weld, probably just tack them, 4 tack welds, both of these, get the heims in. I'm going to go ahead and mock this one up back on the axle bracket and on the shackle. Make sure everything looks good there before I go any farther. And then I'll start laying out the bottom tube. Okay, so top tube is in. Got that joint in. I had a bushing in the original one, was in that top one. I ended up just putting another heim joint with some misalignment spacers. There is the shackle. So I took a measurement. I have the bottom heim is in. So I got a measurement for the tube that I'm going to cut for the bottom piece. Basically going to follow kind of sort of parallel with this bar. And then right up here, I'm going to bend it up right there. So not sure what degree bend that'll be yet, but, and then in between, I'll put some other pieces of tubing to help brace it all up, and it'll be stupid strong. I mean, super strong. Yeah. Okay. I think I'm going to shoot for 35 degrees to start with. $25, 30. We'll go. Now we're gonna go. There's 35. Here more. We'll go 40. One more for spring back. All right. I like that. Let's try that. Okay. Got the one end coped. Got my insert inserted. It's tacked in. All right, so I'm going to go underneath there, and we're going to go ahead and mock it up. Get this hind joint in here. And if everything looks good, I'll go ahead and tack the other end in, and then I can start building the diagonal braces. Okay. So there is the bottom bar. I got it all matted up. My coping fit very, very nice. I just got a ratchet strap, kind of hold it together. I used a laser level, made sure it was, level this way. It looks good. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put a couple tacks on either side, hold that together. And then back here, I'm going to go ahead and cut another tube to fit between there, tack that in, and then that will kind of hold its shape. Then from there, all I got to do is, I don't know, what I'm just going to do is just simple bars through here, or I had a suggestion from one of my buddies to put a plate across it and actually like cut out something like with my Random Adventures logo or something like that. I don't know, put something clever in it. I don't know. That would be strong though if I did plate it on both sides of the tubing, from the whole middle section. That would really make it strong. And if you can see, it's actually hanging down below the drive shaft. So this is going to be the perfect kind of little skid plate to protect the drive shaft, which I really like. So let me get this shape finalized, get these pieces in here all tacked in, and then I'm going to figure out, once I get on the bench, what I'm going to do with everything in between here. So let me get this melted together, and then we'll go from there. Okay, there it is. That's how it's going to be. Back up here. There you go. I think that's going to be way stronger than the one that I had in there. Everything's just tacked together. Just got to go ahead and weld it all up good, let her cool off, hit it with some paint, and I can throw that in there and call that good. I don't know, maybe later I will add like a little piece of plate because I don't have time right now. I got a few days and I want to have this ready for another little excursion. So maybe I can cut a little plate to put in there and give it to one of my buddies and hopefully can laser cut something cool out of it and I can just weld it in place later. That would be pretty rad. So yeah, okay. Let's weld it up and get it painted. All right, there it is. All welded up, cooling off. Just got it hanging for some bungee cords. And I'm going to grab some primer and some paint, get it all coated up, and throw the hind joints back in it and throw it in. See how it works. Pretty happy. That was pretty simple. It's definitely going to be stronger than that one. Okay, day 2, and paint is dry, and the anti-rat bar is installed. There it is. Turned out outstanding. I love how it's protecting the drive shaft better than the old setup did. Looks killer. Went back in like a piece of cake. So we're checking that off the list, and now we are moving on to this front track bar. Let's figure that out. Okay, so now track bar, you will pay attention to this connection right here. You will see I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to push on the chassis of the truck. Hopefully, now let me do a little better. You can see the movement. There it goes. Lots and lots of play right there. Lots of play. All right, so we're going to pull that apart, take a look at that bolt hole, and then we're going to address that. Okay, I got the bolt out. The hole, it's not as bad as I thought. It is a little bit mushroomed on these two ends here. I don't have a weld washer to fix it currently, But what I am going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go get a longer bolt, and I'm going to get a fine thread lock nut one. So we're going to replace all this with something a little bit better. So that should take care of that for the immediate future anyway. I'll have to pull that back off and get a weld washer for that. Won't be a big deal to take care of. Okay, I picked up a 1/2 inch longer, so it's a 3.5 inch, 3/4 inch bolt, and I went with fine thread this time. And now we have lots of engagement into the nylon part of the lock nut. So she good now. Just I don't know if I can do this and hold it at the same time, but she's tight. She's not going to move. I am going to order a 3/4 inch weld washer just for the future. I'm sure it'll probably start to move eventually. Then I'll just go ahead and pop it back off and put it in the weld washer. But we're going to call that done. All right, on to the next issue is the exhaust wrap, the sleeving. So I did was remove the band clamps from the collectors, dropped it down, and just fished that sleeve on. It goes all the way to where it merges at the Y, so it's perfect. Other side's a little bit tighter. I'm going to have to drop it down a little bit, so I think I'm going to have to bust that clamp loose real quick, and then I can slide it back a little bit, that I can get the passenger side one on. But I think this is going to work really good. Okay, on the passenger side, I got the Y pipe dropped down just enough. I'll start sliding the sleeve over it and feeding it down. This run's going to be a lot shorter than the other one, so this side will probably get all bunched up. I guess you can cut this stuff, but if I don't have to cut it, I'll just bunch it all up and we'll call it good. So let me go ahead, open this up, get my gloves on, start feeding it on. And there it is. It's all wrapped up. So this side I just had to kind of bunch it all up. No big deal. I think the only other thing possible is that part of the merge right there. Maybe I'll get one of them DEI, kind of like hand-formed aluminum shields that I can kind of wrap around that so that doesn't radiate up on the floor pan anymore. But just having those two wrapped is going to make a big difference. So as like I said, you can see how close it is to the oil pan or the bell housing, the torque converter area, and the trans pan. So I'm sure that was radiating some heat into my fluids. So there we go. Check that off the list. Okay, so it's been a couple weeks since the last clip you just watched. Had a bunch of stuff going on here at the house. Actually had a car show here. If you want, go check out Random Adventures on my Facebook page and my Instagram. See some pictures about how that turned out. It's actually a really fun day. So anyway, I'm back to working on this, getting it ready for the next upcoming trip. Off camera, I did get the new trans cooler fan installed. I had to modify the mount for the cooler itself a little bit to fit. The fan is a lot thicker than the old one, and it interfered with the tube for the anti-roll bar. So I had to modify that slightly to make everything fit. It's all done. It's all good. And now I'm actually going to change out the rear shocks on the truck. These are some really good Fox 2.0 smoothies, remote reservoirs. I got them from a buddy these were actually built by AccuTune. They were valved for a 4-door JKU, a vehicle a lot heavier than what this truck is. So the valving on these shocks has never been right for this truck. They are very, very stiff. So basically, I'm going to remove them, and I'm just going back to just a plain Jane traditional monotube shock that's made by ProComp. They're basically a budget shock, but these are a 12-inch travel shock. The ProComps I'm going to put on here are actually a 14-inch travel shock. And just the way everything works out with the mounts and the compressed and extended lengths and everything, I'm only going to give up a 1/2 of an inch of compression, but I'm going to gain actually 2.5 inches of droop. That's what the math says. So Anyway, I'm going to pull these Foxes off. I'm going to swap on the Pro Comps, and hopefully it'll ride a little bit nicer, not so stiff in the rear end, and hopefully these work. If not, it was an $80 experiment, and I'll just go ahead and take these and get these revalved. So anyway, let's get them on and let's see how it works. And then next up is removing the Fox 12 inchers and putting on these Pro Comp. I can't remember what these are. I don't know, ES 9000 or something like that. 10 wave valve adjustable, whatever. 14-inch shocks. So we're going to throw those on in place. And hopefully I get a little more droop per quarter. And also hopefully it rides just a little bit softer. I've already started unbolting the Foxes. So go ahead and get these off. All right, I got one of the Fox shocks out. There it is, laid out next to the new Pro Comp. You see I'm not giving up much compression for quite a bit more droop. So, and also, here's another use for my taller jack. That worked out really good for extending out the rear suspension on the truck. So I could get these Fox shocks out that are under a ton of pressure. So that made it real nice. Lift up the back of the truck, pull the shocks out. Now see if I can jam those in place. Anyway, there's a video on my channel, the taller jack by Brennan's Garage. Check that thing out. I love that jack. All right, I got this side on. Put a little piece of Dynamat, or not Dynamat, whatever, some heat insulation there on the shock body since it's kind of close to the tailpipe. Just to be safe. Anyway, so that's on. Everything looks good there. So just got to go do the other side. We'll set her down and see how she sits. And there's the new shocks. All bolted up. Get her out on the road. See how she feels now. Yep, they're shocks. Nothing special. Fingers crossed. Hopefully it was worth the effort. All right, now that the shocks are done, next item on the list. This is it's made by DEI. It's basically a sheet of formed aluminum, like perforated. So this, I'm going to go ahead and basically cut the shape, and I'm going to mold it. I'm going to wrap it around the merge of my Y pipe on the exhaust, because the heat sleeve works good over the tubes where they come together, but that merge, obviously I can't slide those over, so I'm going to use this to make some kind of heat shield between that and the floor pan. So this should be the final piece to that puzzle. So we'll see how this works. I may have to trim it up. I got some sheet metal snips here. So we'll see what I can come up with for this. Okay, got the heat shield up over the Y pipe, the merge there. Actually, I did two layers of it. I had enough of it. I could double it up right there. And then just kind of wrapped it around the rest of the exhaust. Stainless steel clamps. Should stay put pretty good there. So, along with that heat sleeve. If that don't work, I guess nothing's gonna work. So that's it. Hopefully that stays in place and doesn't rattle around. It's a little bit loose on there, but I think it'll be all right. I'll take it for a test drive here in a few. So yeah, let's. And yes, I did notice that did back off. I got to put some Loctite and then crank that sucker back down. So, all right, we're about done under here. All right, that's a wrap for this round of fixes and modifications on the Truggy. We're all done. I am dying out here. It is hot as hell, but we are ready for the next trip. And the next trip is going to be going to the Badlands in Attica, Indiana. Really looking forward to it. Haven't been there in about 12 years, I figure. So got all the stuff from Kentucky fixed or upgraded. I did end up putting a weld washer in the track bar bracket to fix that wobbled out bolt hole. Just didn't record it. So that's done. We got the new shocks on the rear. I got the new anti-rat bar built. I got the header wrap on the Y pipe. We got the heat shield on the rest of the exhaust system. So I think I'm good to go. So hopefully we'll get some good footage from the Badlands. It's a pretty cool park. And also, if you can, check out Random Adventures on Facebook now and also Instagram. Check out some of the different pictures and whatnot on there. And as always, thank you. Like it, subscribe, share it, whatever. And we will see you on the next one. Later.